Hi, Jake. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us, and congratulations on the brilliant film.
Oh,
Um,
thank you so much.
Maybe just for people who aren't already familiar with The Vast of Night, can you just give us a brief introduction? I mean, this is a very hard film, I think, to kind of give a synopsis of or kind of capture in words. But how would you kind of give your elevator description of what happens in this film?
I think, yeah. The Vast of Night takes place in one night in a small town in New Mexico in 1959. And it's about two kids, Everett and Faye, who I'm a radio DJ and she runs the switchboard in the town. And we sort of follow some breadcrumbs because we think we may be onto some extraterrestrial sort of involvement. And it's sort of about our journey in finding out what's maybe going on.
Hmm. And what was it when? Because I know you have a background in theatre. What was it about the script, um, the story, the sort of very specific kind of setting of it all? What attracted you to being involved with the project?
I mean, the script is just the first thing. The script is incredible. It's like this really, really detailed. I mean, there's so much texture of the different characters. All have even the small parts have their little moment, which I think is really always important in a movie. That small characters still add texture to the whole thing, and they really do. And just the musicality of the dialogue, I could not put it down. It was the most readable thing. I mean, especially the most readable scripts. They're often you have to sort of imagine how they're going to end up looking, and this one just read straight through really brilliantly. I would say that, and coupled with Skyping with Andrew, who just was this really detailed, ambitious, great talking with actors guy who wanted to make a really special, unique indie movie.
And yeah, what was it like working with him? Because I believe this is his debut feature. I guess
Right.
perhaps there's always maybe a slight risk in working with someone who you're working on their
Yeah.
first film. But
I,
what was? Did you have any kind of hesitation about that, or what was that experience like?
no, I didn't have that much of a hesitation because he was taking a chance on me too. I mean, I was like, it was I had only worked on one other movie before this, and I had done a lot of plays, and so he really went off of my audition, and then us just Skyping together. So I had total faith in him, and it was like, I would being on set, you would have thought it was his like 10th or 20th movie. So well oiled, and he really just knew how to talk with actors, how to get them excited about something, and how to get good performances, and how to rehearse, because all those things were there. He really knew how to do it. It was amazing.
And what was it like working, with the rest of the cast, like in particular working with Sierra, who just plays this character of Faye absolutely brilliantly, and the kind of back and forth between you both, I think it's really sort of like a crucial part of the film. It's sort of very quick fire. It's got a great pace to it. So how was it working with her and bouncing off her in making the film?
Yeah, she was just great. She just brings this really like bubbly, curious, sort of wide-eyed girl who loves technology and it's sort of nerdy, but I'm nerdy too, even though I think I'm cool. So we really get along in this like sort of unique, nice way. And she was just the best. She was such a pro. She's been acting since she was whatever 1 or 2 years old, and yeah, it was brilliant. We just sort of got along really well, which is key, I think, to developing that sort of chemistry, and it makes it feel sort of spontaneous in the movie, even though we didn't improvise at all. It was like all in the script. But working with her was the best. Yeah.
And what about kind of sort of some of the the practical aspects of making the film? I mean, first of all, there's kind of like, see, being in a different period of like the costume, the cardigans and the glasses and all this kind of thing. But then also the fact that it was all shot at night, I believe. So what was that experience like, kind of having to get into that different era, but also perhaps having kind of like a bit of an upside down schedule?
Yeah. The schedule was weirdly nice for me because I'm sort of a night owl anyway. And I mean, waking up at like 4 or 5 in the morning for films to get the light is harder for me actually than like staying up all night actually just fit really well. I was like, oh, this is great. And there's like this bond that happens when everyone's staying up late together. It just like feels like a sleepover, like a campfire kind of thing. I mean, I actually think that that was part of the fun of it, was staying up all night. I really, really loved that aspect. Um, and yeah, what was, so you asked it, there's another thing.
And it, kind of being immersed in that era, I mean, like, you know, going back to the 1950s, did that require any kind of like preparation on your part? Kind of like, because obviously there's a costume that does some of the heavy lifting for you, but also I guess you have to kind of get your mindset into that era in order to kind of play the character well.
Yeah, there was a, you know, the research, most of the fun stuff that I did was about the music of the time, because you know, he's a radio DJ, and there's a lot of great YouTube stuff of these radio DJs from the 50s and how they spoke. They had these personas. I mean, Everett has the same, he calls himself the Maverick, and it was like, that is so in line with what a lot of these guys would have done. They have these nicknames that they give themselves and these sort of characters they created, and so I looked at a lot of them. And then I think it was, yeah, it was like finding his voice, and that radio character that he had was big. And after that fell into place. A lot of finding him became easier after that. And then also I had a reel-to-reel recorder in my hotel room that Andrew and Adam and Melissa, the producers, got me, so that I could just sort of actually get my hands on that stuff. So it didn't feel foreign when we went to shoot it. It sort of felt like mine. And that stuff is really helpful, because sometimes doing research about a time period can feel really heady, and you maybe learn things about the time period, but they're not always the most helpful as an actor. You still have to find some way to like experience them. And so having the actual reel-to-reel recorder was incredible.
Mm. And you know, this is a really bold film in lots of ways. I mean, kind of the cinematic style of it is really quite unique, and you know, the storyline as well. Some of it just sort of plays out almost in real time. There's even sections where the screen goes completely blank, almost like we're actually listening to a radio show rather than watching a film. So how much of that did you already get an inkling of when you were shooting it, or like how much did that become more apparent to you when you sort of saw the finished piece, and how did you react when you kind of saw like how bold it was?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, Andrew really always spoke about all these different influences that the movie had, and that he was really inspired by radio plays. I listened to a lot of Gunsmoke before, which was a TV show too, but it started, I think, as a radio play, as a radio sort of serial thing. And he always was influenced by those, and by Twilight Zone, obviously. So, I mean, he always talked about it, but yeah, I was sort of amazed and very, very, just happily, surprised and in awe when I saw how smoothly they integrated, because we didn't think about that stuff that much while we were shooting. I think as actors, like I knew that he was planning to use sort of a black screen during the phone call scene, but I didn't know when. So it was like, when we were shooting it, I wasn't, like I always had to, I always thought that he could use any bit of that. So it was, it didn't really come into the shooting of it, but it was amazing to see all the different influences come together. Yeah.
Mm. And when people come and see this film, what do you think they're going to take away? What do you think are some of the things that come out of it? Like, it is quite an experience to watch. And then, like you say, there are all these influences. So I guess if, like, for people who are real cinephiles, spotting the references that come up throughout, which probably I won't even get most of the geeky cinephiles out there, they will. But and also kind of like thinking about stuff about that time. There's kind of like this comment about realizing that Billy is black and saying, oh, is that okay? And kind of thinking of some of those issues of the time. So what do you think some of the themes are that come out of the film, and what will people feel like when they come out of the cinema or off watching it online? Sorry.
Right. Either way. I mean, I think, it's really just it's a pretty layered film. I think there is a lot for different people in it. As you say, the discovery that Billy is black, I think, is actually a great piece of texture, because it sort of acknowledges that this movie is taking place in a part of American history which was terrible for a lot of people, for a lot of African American people. And it sort of stays true to that experience that a lot of people had. So I love that part of the movie. But for me, the heart of it is about the unknown, and it feels weird to be releasing a movie right now, but it also feels kind of right for this one, because so much of it is about beginning to accept that we don't have any idea really what tomorrow is going to bring, and we don't know so much, and we like to think that we know, as Everett likes to think that he knows in the beginning, but at the end of the day, we sort of have to accept that we don't. And I hope that people just get some joy and some wonder out of being able to sort of sit with those thoughts and think about where we're at right now, and how little we know.
And do you think there's something specific, like this might play out differently to an American audience? I don't know, I'm just thinking, like, I have the sense that, like, America's, like, pretty hot on kind of conspiracy theories and, kind of this whole thing of fake news and what's really going on. I mean, even, like, Donald Trump seems to kind of sometimes share, like...
Yeah, he touched quite a nerve in America with the fake news thing. I think you're right. There's we do. I think there's an American thing of like loving the story of the regular people doing the detective work. Like it's really fun to see just two kids doing what you would imagine like the police sheriff doing. We love stories like that. I think Stranger Things is based around that idea too. It's like there's just something very American about the regular people doing that. And I think there's this American nostalgia for the 50s, which will never go away. And I think it's maybe a nostalgia of other places in the world, but I know we have it. And, for Elvis and the beginning of rock and roll, the beginning of stardom. I think that all those things sort of are wrapped up in the movie, and that nostalgia gets sort of used in the movie, I think, and I think people can latch onto that. Yeah.
And how do you feel sort of like this film's gonna fit in with your career trajectory? Obviously, kind of coming from a theatre world into film, where do you see yourself kind of going next? And do you see this as kind of a transition, if you like?
Oh yeah. I guess I've always wanted to do movies and plays. I wouldn't say that it's like a transition for me into just doing only movies, but I would say it's a transition into, I believe now that I can, that I can sort of can hold a movie and can do that. And so it was a great experience for me in terms of that. And I just, I've been spoiled to work with incredible, filmmakers and writers. And so I just see myself hoping to get so lucky again. Yeah.
And do you think that what sort of impact do you think it's going to have? I mean, obviously this is like an incredibly odd time for everyone in general, but particularly for cinema, that experience of being sat, getting your popcorn and being in that the theatre to watch it, and now lots of things are going to be released digitally. Like, how do you think that's going to affect the industry, or do you think it's something that we're just going to bounce back to our normal ways of doing things within the next 6 months or whatever?
I don't know. That's a great question. I've been thinking about. I think we've all been thinking about this so much. Is will we bounce back to how things used to be once this is over? If this is over, when whatever that looks like. For me, there is no actual substitute to gathering people in a room together. I think coming from theater too, that's more than half of what makes it special, is just the sort of live nature of it. And I do think that we will bounce back to seeing things, to making an event of it, to going somewhere, to getting dressed and going out and buying popcorn. I do think we will. But there is an advantage to having things online that we've never seen before, and we've never needed as bad as we do now. I mean, I, in a lot of ways, feel really honored to be an actor right now, because we all need storytelling and music and like things that we can watch and listen to in our own house that can transport us a little bit away from the daily life, which has become so monotonous and strange and difficult. So yeah, I just hope that it sort of, that in streaming it can provide some joy in a different way for people right now who, our lives are totally changed and sort of kept inside.
And can you quickly tell me a bit about the projects you do have coming up? Are you working on another film with Andrew? Is that right?
Well, yes, the other film with Andrew, I don't know exactly where he's at with that. I think that's a him question because he's very secretive about where he's at with that one in particular. But there's a Cinestate and Fangoria are doing a reboot of Castle Freak that was going to come out at film festivals, and so we'll see what they decide to do with it. And then there's a film called Agnes, which is from a director, Mickey Reese, and that's from Divide and Conquer and Quagmire. And so we'll see. I don't know what their plans are for releasing it, but whatever, got those coming up.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess the other issue is, although people are actually consuming more content than ever now, probably the next halt that's going to be is actually people being get out to film the next things. Like, I know there's some like TV soaps here, but they've run out of episodes because they can't.
Yeah.
So I guess there's going to be a bit of a hiatus in that sense before you can kind of get back into actually shooting something.
I know people are going to hit a wall, and they're going to have watched everything online. It's going to be like going back to look at like the first YouTube videos and things. You're going to have to find something to.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's actually shown kind of maybe the resilience of cinema, particularly with like the film festivals and things. It's like, actually, do you need everyone there in a particular place and with red carpets and with all the paraphernalia that goes around it, and actually it was like bad for the environment? Actually, maybe a digital kind of way of distributing film.
Yeah, I love that those a bunch of festivals did that and are giving those movies that were going to premiere a chance to be seen by people, by way more people than would have been able to. So yeah, there's a weird thing of like there really is an advantage to things not having a real location. You get to reach a much wider audience.
Yeah. And so where exactly are you right now? How long do you think you're going to be locked down for?
I mean, I'm in New York. I don't know. Well, who knows here? It's weird. I mean, I don't think the subways are going to be safe for a good long while. So we'll be here for a little while. I may, I'm talking with some friends about maybe trying to go upstate to a leafier, more natural place for a little while, but we'll see.
Is there a lot of fear there? I mean, I feel like here it's almost become a bit of a joke. Everyone seems to have just like, as soon as the sun's come out, everyone's in the parks now.
Yeah, there's a lot of people outside, but I would say that there's still a lot of solidarity with with the healthcare workers, and there's just still a lot of sick people here. So it's like, lots of places are still closed. The subways are deemed relatively dangerous to ride, and a lot of people just aren't on them. So life does feel different here. Yeah.
And do you think there's also like a lot of criticism of the government? Like, people feel really let down, I think, that it just hasn't been handled well. Is that the same sentiment there?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that Obama left like a manual of how to deal with pandemics and a whole, government agency that Trump has gotten rid of. I mean, Ebola could have been this, but I think that the Obama administration dealt with it really well, and this administration has dealt with it really horribly.
Lovely to speak to you.
Yeah, thanks. It was great talking to you too. Be well.
Thank you. Thanks. Have a nice evening. Bye.